All right, Hurricane Florence will soon make landfall on the southeastern coast of the United States. We'll go to our reporters in just a minute. Thousands of U.S. National Guard members, they're standing by. FEMA is on full alert. We have stockpiles of emergency resources. We have food, water, supplies, cots, blankets, baby formula, where it's all been pre-positioned to help the people that are victims of this storm. Virginia, North, South Carolina, Georgia, all currently operating under a state of emergency. Mandatory evacuations have now been in place for days. Now, this is a serious, looming national disaster. Sadly, we have people in this country on the left, well, they're trying to make the storm a political issue, if you can believe that. Some literally blaming President Trump for the extreme weather, like he had control over a hurricane. You have the editorial board over at the Washington Post literally claiming that Trump is complicit in causing the hurricane. You can't make this up because of his, quote, efforts to dismantle environmental protections that caused the hurricane. So if we get this straight, the left won't give President Trump credit for the booming economy or moving towards energy independence or the progress with North Korea, no missiles being fired over Japan or the victory over ISIS or tax cuts or so much more. But somehow they want you to believe he's responsible for Mother Nature. And by the way, in less than 2 years of office, he's become that almighty and powerful that he can collude with God in this case and create massive hurricanes. It's beyond sick and beyond ugly and twisted. Now, this derangement syndrome, state of psychosis, is now reaching heights of what is borderline insanity. It's not just the abusively biased Washington Post either trying to politicize this Hurricane Florence. Take a look.
President Trump says FEMA is ready for Hurricane Florence, but mounting evidence suggests it could be incredibly difficult to deal with this disaster if climate change deniers are on the front lines of emergency response.
But when $10 million is taken out of the FEMA budget and reallocated to ICE for detention facilities, right before the hurricane season, those questions are being asked right now in the appropriations committees.
I think you're elevating Trump to evil, whereas having raised 3 kids, I just think he's a giant toddler with no real connection to reality and no sense of empathy or responsibility.
He came across as almost gleeful and excited about the hurricane and how big it was and how tremendously wet it's going to be and all these absurd things that came out of his mouth.
But according to 2 Harvard scientists, Trump's environmental policies could lead to an additional 80,000 unnecessary deaths every decade.
He is so consumed by the calamity that exists and the chaos that exists that he's not really prepared and focused because he spends every weekend golfing instead of preparing.
All right, these people have lost their mind. We'll have more on that in just a minute. But first, we go live to Leland Vittert. He is standing by in North Carolina in the middle of all of this, and the winds have kicked up considerably in just the last few minutes. Leland, thank you. What's going on there? Looks like you have to hold on to stand up.
You really do, Sean, and we almost just got blown over here. It gives you a sense, though, of the power of this storm that keeps increasing, and the people here who are either watching their homes and their communities on television or those who have decided to ride this one out have got a long, long way to go. Florence is effectively slowed down now and just creeping along. Ordinarily, when you're in an area like this that is the worst of the worst, if you will, it only lasts a couple of hours. This is going to be about 24 hours of hurricane force winds that we're just now really feeling the real effects of. The rising tide now is coming in, which is a terrible combination with the storm surge that will certainly destroy this dock and then send these dock sections into town to destroy anything and everything in its path. And you watch this rain come down. It is at some point, it's going to be 40 inches of rain, which equals feet of flooding. So those who did not evacuate certainly have no chance to do so right now. Police and fire tell us that they just are not able to respond in these kinds of conditions, even for people in life-threatening situations at times. So folks are pretty much out and on their own until the storm passes, and then the water starts to rise all over North Carolina, but certainly along the beach front and the waterfront. Power has been out for hours now and could be out for weeks to come as this water continues to come in, high tide continues to come in, and these hurricane force winds will only get stronger, Sean.
All right, Leland Vittert, be careful. This is where reporters really put their lives on the line. Bring us the story live where it takes place. It's extremely dangerous. Be careful, please. Here, also joining us now, Steve Harrigan. He's also in North Carolina tonight as the storm now begins to kick in. Steve, what's happening from your vantage point?
Sean, we've seen things get worse each hour pretty much steadily. Right now, I'm starting to hear things break in the darkness. The electricity is out here. It's out for more than 100,000 people at least along the coast of North Carolina. That could go up to 3 million by the end of this, but it looks like some of the construction on the building opposite me is starting to blow off. We've seen these winds reach tropical storm force. Over the next couple hours, we expect them to reach hurricane force, so things are going to get worse overnight. Now, first responders are ready. The Army is here. The National Guard is here. Swift boat rescue teams from 19 states have come here to volunteer to try and help people. Most of the people have listened. They've gotten out. They've boarded up their houses. But for the few here, it could be a rough couple of days. They've closed down the bridge that goes from this island to the mainland. There's no power, and it's just getting worse and worse as these sheets of rain continue to come down. Sean, back to you.
All right, Steve Harrigan. Also, you two be safe. We'll be checking in with Steve and Leland Vitter all throughout the show. Also coming up, weatherbell.com's Joe Bastardi. He's going to weigh in on some of the ridiculous claims that we just showed you. Plus, we'll have full hurricane coverage from the ground all throughout the show tonight. First, we do have breaking right now. We do have new information surrounding the deep state tonight that we want to share with you. We'll keep up pictures of the storm as it continues to go on. But we are now on day 4 of more damning revelations, new developments surrounding Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. Tonight, we have 2 news stories to bring you. The first, according to FoxNews.com, we have new texts that are showing that Lisa Page may have once actually interned under former President Clinton. On January 19, 2017, she texted her then boyfriend, Peter Strzok, quote, "Needless to say, it was very different when I interned there under Clinton." And, of course, after all the previously unearthed anti-Trump, pro-Clinton text messages, should we really be surprised? This is just the cherry on top of a long record of what we now know is political bias at the highest levels of the FBI, the DOJ. Also, we see Director of National Intelligence and the CIA, as we told you last night. Our second news story tonight surrounding Page and Strzok may reveal potential serious wrongdoings again within the top ranks of the FBI. Tonight, Judicial Watch just received dozens of previously unseen documents from the DOJ, including email exchanges between the general counsel. Remember, he left a while back. James Baker, deputy director. Andrew McCabe, a grand jury has now been convened looking into him. Strzok, Page, and others. Now, this newly found email chain referenced a sensitive data exchange program with European intel agencies. It was sent over an unsecured device email account. Page even references, writing in all caps, and bleep, given everything going on, why is redacted using a Yahoo account for this? Actually, apparently a Yahoo account from Redacted's iPad. Make him stop. Now, given all these developments all throughout the week, this is 4 nights in a row surrounding the rampant political leaking and bias and abuse of power, mishandling of sensitive information, we should all demand a lot more. Finally, from the highest-ranking government officials, those responsible for this deep state bureaucratic corruption need to be held accountable in a court of law. We also know this goes right into Robert Mueller's office vis-a-vis the relationship with Bruce Orr, Christopher Steele, Andrew Weissmann. And, of course, Christopher Steele doesn't stand by his own dossier, but that didn't stop him from trying to feed information, funnel it through Orr to the special counsel's office, and he even wrote it down. Now, by the way, today the president tweeted more text messages between former FBI employees. Strzok and Page are a disaster and an embarrassment to the FBI and DOJ. This should never have happened. But we're learning more and more by the hour. Others were leaking like mad in order to get the president. We believe that to be the CIA, which we revealed last night. So the question is, Jeff Sessions, are you paying attention? Rod Rosenstein, where are you in this case? By the way, Bob Mueller, are you concerned Steele was funneling information into your office, information he himself didn't even stand by when he was involved in an interrogatory in a court of law in Great Britain? He said, I don't know if any of this is true. Is this acceptable behavior from the highest-ranking members of our government? It is not. Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter will be here. They'll weigh in on the latest. We also have an update on Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh. His confirmation vote in the Senate has been delayed until next week. And now, after weeks and weeks of partisan attacks, frankly, since the announcement of Judge Kavanaugh, every dirty political tactic from every Democrat in the Senate, well, now at the last minute, the last second, the final hour, Dianne Feinstein is throwing a Hail Mary pass, a last-ditch effort to block Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation. And Feinstein released earlier today this cryptic statement, Quote, I have received information from an individual concerning the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. That individual strongly requested confidentiality, declined to come forward or press the matter further, and I have honored that decision. I have, however, referred the matter to federal investigative authorities, and according to reports, that information supposedly surrounds some kind of alleged incident when Kavanaugh was in high school 40 years ago. And two sources are telling Fox that Senator Feinstein has known about these decades-old allegations since July. She's met with him. She's had chances to confront him about this publicly. And now, because nothing is stuck, well, now she's beginning to throw this in at the final hour. She questioned Kavanaugh in private sessions. She questioned him in a public hearing. She said and did nothing. And now, with his confirmation looking imminent, Feinstein is trying to pull out all the stops, all the dirty political tactics. I warned you from the beginning this is what they would do. Very predictable, same old playbook. Democrats always find a way to impugn the character and the standing of a Republican-appointed nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court. It is so common, it now has its own term. It's called borking, because of this is what the Democrats do to obstruct, in the case of Ronald Reagan's nominee, Judge Robert Bork. He was never confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court, in large part because of the lies, the fear-mongering from then Mr. Character himself, Senator, well, drive the car off the bridge, leave the girl in the car, Ted Chappaquiddick Kennedy. Remember this.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions, blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters, rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids, and school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censured at the whim of government.
Years later, borking was in full play during the confirmation hearings of now Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. 1991 was the year. Senate Democrats, they rolled out a former colleague last minute, made sexual harassment allegations against him. This case of character assassination was so vicious, so nasty, Justice Thomas, well, infamously now called it a, quote, high-tech lynching. You may remember.
This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Now we're watching a last-ditch effort from Senator Dianne Feinstein. She wants to bork Judge Kavanaugh. Democrats made this process so partisan, so bitter, so nasty that even Supreme Court Justice, liberal hero Ruth Bader Ginsburg has spoken out. Take a look.
Compare the process that you went through with what's going on today in that process.
The way it was right. The way it is wrong. It's become a highly partisan show. I wish I could wave a magic wand and have it go back to the way it was.
A highly partisan show. Her colleague, Justice Clarence Thomas, also criticizing the Democrats for their political shenanigans. Take a look.
Honorable. If we could use that word about more people who are in public life, people who actually ask the questions at confirmation hearings instead of Spartacus, we use...
Had to get that in there. Just had to get that in there.
Hey, look, the 300, but at any rate.
By the way, Clarence Thomas, I've had the honor of meeting him as one of the best laughs ever. The Spartacus line was pretty good. Barring any successful borking from the Democrats, Kavanaugh should rightfully be confirmed, and he will be. This all comes as the election season is now heating up. We're only 54 days away from the single most important midterm election of our lifetime. I've long been warning you what is going to happen if the Democrats take back the House in November. They're going to rescind the Trump tax cuts. They're going to start impeachment proceedings. They want to keep Obamacare. They will block all originalists, constitutionalists to the court. They want activists on the court. They want open borders. They'll eliminate ICE. They want all investigations into the deep state to come to an end. Democrats, well, they will ramp up investigations into any and all things Trump. Even Shiftless Schiff said yesterday that he'll go full bar on investigations into money laundering allegations against Trump. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. The Democrats, they want to stop this administration from being successful. In other words, helping you, the American people. How do you serve the American people? By involving yourself in investigations. What are the Democrats offering that'll help the forgotten men and women in this country? They want to stop the success, the economic success and progress that we have. They want to stop it in its tracks. Look closely. If you're in one of these states, you will decide the future of the United States Senate. Take a very, very close look at that map. Every one of those states is important. And by the way, if you're in one of these House races, take a look. We'll scroll it on your screen. You will decide whether or not, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Maxine Waters take control of your future in the House. And you get to decide. You have the power whether or not the president, they will impeach him. They will raise your taxes. They want open borders. They want to keep Obamacare. All of that is true, and they're even saying most of it, except the impeachment part. They're telling Maxine to shush, don't say it. But if the election were held today, I don't think anyone could predict with any certainty Republicans maintain control of the House of Representatives. They better come up with a very strong set of principles. They all need to sign it, and they all need to campaign on it. It's pretty scary reality, and only you have the power in the end to stop it from happening. That is Nancy Pelosi and company.